need to know about the music business by Donald S. Passman, one of my favorite books. A lot of artists, independent and signed, been talking to me, and I'm like, read that book, man. You'll catch a lot of gems on it. So I'm reading this book again. So I'm gonna start at page 37 where we left at yesterday. This is because the funds only pass through your hands. You don't keep them. And so they aren't really earnings. Two, money is paid to a producer of your records. Producers are the people hired to put people together your recording, as we'll discuss in detail on page 125. And you'll pay them advances and royalties, just like recording costs. Monies you have to fork over to a producer aren't really earnings for the same reason we just discussed in connection with recording costs. Three, co-writers. When you write songs with somebody else, the manager shouldn't get paid on the other person's share of the song's earnings, even if you collect them first. Four, tour support. This is money paid by a record company to offset your losses from touring. Whether managers should commission tour support is a bit controversial. Some managers argue there is money you get from the record company, just like any other money, and they help you get it, so they should commission it. Most of the time, however, they all agree it wasn't commissionable, but it only compensates you for a loss. Five, cost of collection. If you have to sue someone to get paid, the cost of suing them to collect the money, called collection costs, should be deducted before applying the manager's percentage. For example, if a concert promoter stiffs you for $50,000 and it costs you $10,000 in legal fees and court costs to collect, the manager should only commission $40,000. The $50,000 recovery loss, the $10,000 collection cost. Another way to look at this is to say the manager bears his or her proportionate share of the collection cost. Six, sounds and lights. It's common in personal appearance contracts for the artist to supply his or her own sound system and stage lighting. The promoter then rents the sound and lights from the artist for a specified dollar amount. Customarily, this rent money is considered an expense reimbursement and as imposed to a fee paid to the artist. So the manager isn't paid on the amount allocated to sound and lights. But you gotta ask for this one. Seven, opening acts. When you get to the superstar category, your deal for a personal appearance may also include monies you pay to an opening act. Again, since the money just passes through your hands, it shouldn't be commissionable. Eight, related entities. More and more often, managers now own record labels and sometimes publishing companies, film production companies, concert promotion businesses, or even festivals. If you make a deal with the company owned by the manager, you shouldn't pay a management commission on the earnings from the company. Managers don't always agree with this, arguing that they're wearing two hats. For example, manager and record label. And therefore, there should be a paid for both. You be paying them on the record company earnings. In response, you argue that they can be expected to beat up their own company the way they would beat up a major label. You also argue that getting paid much more through the entity than they would as a manager. So they shouldn't double dip and get paid twice on the same earnings. They get paid once a label when you sell records, then again as a manager when you get paid for those sales. Also, if you leave them as a manager, they'll still get paid as a record company if the deal continues. Term. The term of a management agreement, meaning the period of time that the manager will work for you, is usually 3 to 5 years. If you're an artist, you want to make it as short as possible. If you're a manager, you want to stay as long as possible. Historically, most managers tied the term of their deals to album cycles, meaning the time from when you start recording an album to the end of touring and promotion of that album. And some managers still operate in that basis. However, the concept of an album is challenged in the streaming world because artists release more and more of their recordings in non-album bunches, both bigger and smaller than albums, and the recordings aren't always at the same time. So the definition of an album cycle is becoming problematic, and the trend is now to set the term of management agreement as a specific number of years. Be very careful when negotiating the term of a management deal. Many artists have lived to regret being tangled up in long-term contracts with lousy managers. Yet there's a balancing act that has to work for both sides. Managers don't want to put their sweat into launching your career only to see you waltz off at the first sign of success. And you don't want to be married to a moron who's holding you back. The most common compromise is to say that if the artist doesn't earn a minimum amount, he or she can terminate the agreement early. For example, the deal might be 4 or 5 years, but if the artist doesn't earn 200,000 over the first 2 years, he or she could terminate the deal. I hesitate to give you specific dollar figures for the earnings because, one, they'll probably be out of date by the time you read this, and two, also depend on who you are. If you're a heavy touring band, the numbers are much higher than if you sing folk songs in coffee houses. But here's an example for a beginning pop artist contract. The deal was for 2 years, and the manager could renew for an additional 2 years if the artist earned $300,000 over the first 2 years. The manager could then renew for another third 2 years if during the second 2 years the artist earned $500,000. The manager, if he or she has any sophistication, will also say that the earnings have to include offers you turn down. The theory is that you can't refuse to work and then get out of the deal because you don't earn enough. I usually agree to this, but require that the offers must be similar to those who have previously accepted. So an offer to appear nude at the Moscow Circus wouldn't count unless that's your act. Another approach is to say you must have a record deal or a publishing deal if you're a songwriter within a year or 18 months after the start of the term. And if not, you could terminate the deal. If you get publishing deal ends, if you get this kind of provision, you should also provide that if the record or publishing deal ends, the manager has to get another one within that same time period, 12 to 18 months. If you don't have this second provision, you could get a deal in the beginning, never make a record, get dropped by the label, and be stuck with the manager for the balance of their term. Termination for failing to clear the hurdle can be done 2 years One is a letter from the artist to the manager containing legal words that translate as you're fired. The other is a shorter management deal that gets renewed if the artist achieves certain earnings. For example, the term of the agreement is 2 years. But if the artist earns at least $200,000, the manager continues for an additional 2 years. The only difference between those two arrangements is whether the artist has to remember to send that manager a notice. Earnings after term, the gifts that keeps on talking. One of the most important points you have to negotiate is what your manager gets paid after the end of the management deal. Even though the term may end after a few years, virtually every management contract says the manager gets paid on earnings after the term if those earnings are generated under contract, entered into, or substantially negotiated during the term. This language means two things. One, as to records made during the term of the management deal, the manager gets a commission from income earned by those records after the end of the management deal. And two, the manager is paid on records made after the term of a management deal if the records are recorded under a contract signed during the term. Thank y'all for tuning in. I appreciate y'all's time. This is my favorite music book, one of my favorite music books by Don's Passman. All you need to know about the music business. I'm going to stop at page 37 no, at page 40. I'm going to stop at page 40. So later or tomorrow, I'll be reading some more. Keep striving. Keep your head up. The best is yet to come. We're global.